As I read the script for this video in February, I thought it would be 10 pages long. As it turns out, it ended up being 5 times that. And it's now August. That's how special this game is. Enjoy. Hi, I'm back with another video, and this time around we have Facecam, like with my Cat in the Box video. Released in 2016 for RPG 2000, this is a game I haven't actually heard of before. When looking into it, and by that I mean down in the game, I saw it was made by the same person that did Walk in the Star Unknown. Walk in the Star Unknown is a game I really liked for how lighthearted and just a fun adventure game it was. It had some really fun ideas and characters which made me really like the game, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the fetch quest gameplay. So seeing that this game was an earlier work of theirs makes me cautiously optimistic, since I really liked the style that they had with Walk in the Star Unknown, but this could have been a style that they slowly developed over time, and maybe early on it didn't sit correctly. And also, this is a game that has a very different tone from Walk in the Star Unknown. Walk in the Star Unknown was really lighthearted, while this apparently seems to be a more dark game. So seeing that while down in the game made me raise an eyebrow, because I didn't really know if that's what fit them best. This game, to me, is a Trojan horse of quality. Since from the start of the game, I wasn't expecting for me to actually like it. Be that from the direction they took the tone in, or the gameplay that I already tried with Walk in the Star Unknown that I didn't particularly like, but I didn't hate either, or the inclusion of a system which I generally just despise. What I want to say is that I didn't start off on the right foot with this game, but I let it grow on me a little bit, and after 2 in-game hours I was almost captivated by this game. I still have some personal gripes with the game, I'll get into that later on, but I just want to say I am generally baffled at how much of a shift in quality there was from the start to the finish. I did not expect for me to end up loving this game, yet here I am making a video that's decently long, as you can see. The notion of me loving this game is single-handedly carried by its story, either from the actual narrative that it presents, or the formula of storytelling that they used. I have a lot of things to say about this game, both positive, negative, and everything in between. My enjoyment of Endroll is very dependent on the story. So you know what that means, right? Another video where I spent 20% talking about assets, gameplay, and all the other stuff, and 80% on the story. So without further ado, let's get into that 20%. The presentation used for the visuals are all self-made from what I can see. The character sprites and animations are all done by the creator of the game themselves and all look really good. I don't particularly know if the assets used for the tile set are all self-made, but I don't see anything in the credits that say it wasn't. What I do see in the credits is that the music and sound effects were all licensed or third party. The assets, both visual and audio, perfectly complement the game's tone and enhance it greatly, being able to express a wide range of emotions despite the limitations that the engine provides. That said, there are some examples where it feels really off. For example, some of the character portraits. For most of the game, the main characters, so that being characters part of the actual cast that have entire sprites, have their own character portrait. But for smaller characters, they sometimes just have a little version of their own sprite with a text box above them detailing who they are. Which, this isn't a criticism at all, I think this is actually a very cute way of doing it. But where it comes to the problem is that for some of the characters, being very minor, they just simply don't have a character portrait. It just says no image. Which, when you have some character portraits still provide something visually, even if it's just a small sprite, and then have some that just say no image at all, it does feel a bit weird to me. The gameplay can be boiled down to 2 things. The first one being fetch quest. A character will need something specific and you need to retrieve it. Like I said before, this is not gameplay that I particularly mind, but I'm also not a really big fan of. In this case, it has both its pros and its cons. Pro being that it's a very simple way to get the story going, while also learning a little bit more about their characters. That said, after doing it over and over again, it can get a bit repetitive and also just a bit boring. The second part of the gameplay is combat. This is a combat system that I'm pretty familiar with. It's a combat system that I really don't like. I basically never had fun with this combat system. It's very dependent on grinding, levels, item usage, and just is a slog to get through. Sure, the animations that some skill use are pretty cute, but oh my god, everything else surrounding this combat system is the worst. Heavily item focus, heavily skill focus, unknown enemy health bar, and worst of all, it's just so slow. Thank god that this one at least has an auto button so I can at least turn my brain off. But still, the worst thing that this gameplay has to offer is that it's so heavily level dependent. At one point you're gonna reach a boss fight and realize, oh hey, I can't proceed because I didn't spend 20 minutes grinding. And when you reach that for the first time, and when you start grinding, you're gonna realize that you're not having fun. So already I get off the wrong foot with the gameplay. I am not a fan of the combat system at all, and I honestly wish there was either a different combat system or just completely remove it. The story is very much tied in with this combat system, which at least to me makes me endure this combat system for a little bit, since it honestly gets carried by the narrative that it presents through its gameplay. Still, this doesn't make me like the combat anymore. For those who also don't like this combat system and still want to get through the game, I give you one very big piece of advice. Bring Tabasa. He is, without a doubt, the most broken character in this entire game. You're gonna put him in your party, you're gonna just make him spam skills, and you're gonna win. That easy. Because he is the MVP of this game. Don't wanna deal with the gameplay? Have Tabasa. That's my advice. Like I said before with the combat, the story gets very mixed in with the gameplay. So with that said, there's nothing else we can do except for get into the story. The story of this game is easily the best and most intriguing part of it. It's around 8 hours long or so. I could be wrong in that. I did do most of the stuff in the game, so it could be a little bit less, it could be a little bit more. It's just an estimate. But either way, the story is generally impressive. It has the same captivating quality as Cat in the Box, even if they employ a different way of storytelling. Like Cat in the Box, it captivates you with a puzzling mystery that you slowly piece together through the game. However, while Cat in the Box gives you all the puzzle pieces you need from the start and only at the very end of the game you find a way to connect them together, Endroll slowly gives you the pieces as you go into the game, which you immediately know how to fit into a very clear picture. I know that my analogy may be a bit confusing, but what I'm trying to say is that from the start you know what's going to happen, but you just need to still piece things together. Now what really made me want to keep playing was the fact that Endroll provided something that I became a big fan of, alongside its open and shut mystery. A character study exploring some themes I haven't seen touched upon before. But before we get into that, I need to give you a plot summary. Russell is a young kid who has been selected as a subject for an experiment. This experiment involves him taking an orange drug to enter an artificial dream world. Inside this dream world, there's an ensemble cast of characters who all seem to have some form of connection to Russell, even though we don't know why. Slowly but surely, you start to understand what this experiment is all about and what this real goal is. Before you say anything, no. This is not the typical cute thing is actually scary or evil that is hot shit nowadays. It will very clearly tell you from the start that, hey, there's nothing cute about this is supposed to be very harrowing. The dark tone it takes on later on is not done in a way to catch you by surprise. Or at least that's how I view it. It's able to back itself up, so it's okay in my book. If you want to try this game out for yourself and want to go into it blind, please do so now. Links in the description. Please play the game. Now, it's time to get into a story summary of the game. Spoilers ahead! Did you hear that? Spoilers! I'll split this section into two parts. First, we'll take an in-depth look at the main story, which will be the majority of this video as there is a lot to discuss. Shut up. And afterwards, I'll go over what I meant by character study earlier, which won't be for a while. Are you ready for your long-form video essay slop? If so, thanks so much for watching. The game starts off with you being escorted to a room by some guards. They berate you as they drag you off, calling the treatment you're getting a real luxury and saying that this is all karma. Inside the room, there's one bed, a giant TV connected to a VHS player, and a nightstand with a single syringe. Turning on the VHS player, we get a small explanation of why we're here. In a berating manner, of course. Inject the happy dream medicine once a day. This will cause you to fall asleep and make you experience a happy dream. I don't know how safe it is to leave the injection of a syringe to a 14-year-old kid, especially since it sounds like it has to be injected to its veins. I don't know how a 14-year-old kid will be able to do that. Either that or this drug is so potent you can just jab it to yourself and you immediately fall asleep. I don't know how that works. Either way, inject the happy dream medicine and a yellow jingle will start to play. After this sound, we can see that the medicine at least worked, with how the TV has now turned into a giant window. Go through the once locked door, and you're now in a dream world. In an Animal Crossing-like town with happy citizens and smiles and all of that. Walking outside, you meet a woman named Faria, I don't know. An employee of Dreams and Guidance Incorporated. A corporation that's part of the experiment to guide you along this dream world. You're telling me that people can enter other people's dreams with these drugs? God damn. She tells us our character's name, that being Russell. She explains to us that in this dream, Russell is the new kid in town, and we should probably go around introducing ourselves to the locals. This is the first, and optionally, only time we will ever encounter her. She has almost no importance to the story. I think she actually has no importance to the story in fact. So, thank you random fairy godmother, now disappear from my mind. Well then, let's go meet all the inhabitants of this town, since they will all play a role in the story. Going in no particular order at all, we start off with Tabasa, an animal tamer who you will see a lot in the footage that we're gonna use, because she is
the meta.
Cody, a clumsy girl who can be decently blunt at times. Kantera, a man who sells herbal medicine and also talks in an old-fashioned manner. He speaks like this because he says he got it from his grandfather. Gardenia, a girl your age who likes to cook while waiting for her dad. Mireille, a maid who is working for Saxon, the mayor of this town. Yumi, the sheriff of this town who talks like a cowboy because just look at her. And last but not least, Dogma, the priest in the church of this town and also the older brother of Cody. All of these citizens have their own little home inside of this town, except for Mireille, who lives in the same house as the mayor. That said, there is still one more house which we can't enter, so keep that one in mind. Now that you're done with the introductions, we're gonna talk to Tabasa. He's gonna say that, hey, now that you're done, you can help me out with this fetch quest. The fetch quest being retrieving a hairpin for Gardenia. Enter the area where the lost item is, and you're gonna be fighting a lot of enemies until you reach the boss of the area, which will have the item that you're looking for. That's basically the entire story structure for this game. This may sound decently just uninteresting, but like I said before many times, it gets heavily carried by its story. The stages of the story really start warping and changing the deeper you go into this game, with Tabasa's being pretty straightforward. There's something wrong with this cute world, which you already knew was gonna happen. The way to make the gameplay a bit more interesting is by having the enemies you face be actually something that has a meaning attached to it. This will be a couple of set lines which you will see during the second turn of all the normal fights. So in the case of Tabasa, we encounter monkeys and suit tickets, which will include the following line.
Annoying monkeys.
Which does make the fights way more intriguing since it actually provides more story to the game. But when you have to start grinding those enemies and you've already seen the lines 20 times, it just slows you down. We go deeper into the forest and we find Gardenia's hairpin. But before we can grab it, a weird creature pops up. This one is called the Witnessing One. As you fight him, it will taunt you, stating,
We know what you did to him. We know what you did. We were watching. Right as you.
As the monster turns into a monkey. After a certain HP threshold, the screen starts to turn black and the music gets drowned out a bit. Then text pops up on the screen.
As I came in, the zookeeper was feeding the monkeys. The monkeys were screeching loudly. I had a vision of that. He should just die.
You snap out of it as Russell has a shocked expression on his face. Another HP threshold later, the same thing happens.
Then I talked with the zookeeper a little. The zookeeper was really nice and secretly led me to his room. I felt like this was what having a big brother would be like. When I thought that, I got kind of sad. Hit the back of the zookeeper's head. He was squatting in front of a cage, so it was easy to hit him in the head.
This time, Tabasa helps you snap out of it, telling you to focus on the fight. This is how it will be during the story fights. Between two different HP thresholds, which will give you a bit of story dump, and then afterwards you actually kill it. In this case, it talks about someone who one day goes to the zoo, where a friendly zookeeper lets him get an exclusive view of some of the animals. This act of kindness sets something off in the narrator, for some reason, as he decides to bash the skull in of the zookeeper. Returning the hairpin to Gardenia, you can now finish the chapter, which you do by entering your room. When you enter your room, we get a choice, which we know probably doesn't mean anything good.
The room is covered in blood and there's a stained note in the corner. On this note, there's a drawing of a monkey. This note tells the full story that we only saw pieces of during the fight. Here's the full story. That yelling was annoying, so I decided to go to the zoo today. I got the entry fee from Rom's purse. As I came in, why wouldn't he be my big brother? I was sad. Annoying monkeys. Shut up. Annoying monkeys. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? There's also a diary on the nightstand where the syringe was now. It details Russell's thoughts at this moment. This will very slowly change over time. You can tell me to rehabilitate, but I don't really know what I should be doing in the stream. I don't have that guilt the adults are talking about in the first place, so not even this stream will blame me. Everyone in this dream is kind, and for now, it's just enjoyable. What am I supposedly atoning for in such happiness? I'll have this dream again. That's the happiest thing for me now. And thinking about what will happen tomorrow makes me feel excited. With only feelings like that, there's no chance I'll be rehabilitated, so I think this experiment is pointless. Once I see I'm no good as a subject, of course, I'm just going to die. But I don't really care.
We can piece together that all of this stuff is Russell's, the writing in the diary and the writing on the note. But there's still a question in my mind. Who was the zookeeper? Let's head outside and find out.
Hey, Russell. What did I do to you? I didn't do anything, right? So why did you do that? You thought no one was watching? But they were watching.
We then wake up in the same room. The TV turns on to greet us and to flat out confirm any suspicions we may have had about this experiment. In the happy dream, your experiences with the people you have met in your life appear in a variety of forms. In other words, what you see in your dream is all a fabrication of your own mind. So we take no responsibility for any potential harshness. You reap what you sow. It's a good opportunity for you to get a new look at your foolish, twisted ways, characters, personality, etc. Please do your best and suffer.
Them coming off the bat and just flat out telling you that is something that's very welcome to see.
So I'm really happy that they give the confirmation just very early on, so that you can really get more focus on the more important parts of the story. The focus of the story is not about trying to figure out what the dream is all about. It is about trying to find out the connections Russell has to these characters and who Russell actually is. With that said, I will also keep the focus of the story on Russell's stuff. So any extra fluff I will just flat out cut out. So that includes any little side quests which you may think is cute, any little scenes which aren't really that important to Russell's story. I will just cut all of that out. So if you want to experience those, please play the game for yourself, because I'm going to be solely focusing on the main story and Russell's story. But before that, let's introduce a new character which will be very important to the story. When we re-enter the dream world, we find out that the house which was previously vacant now has a new inhabitant. The information shop is open for business, and the informant is, well, you. The reason why it's Russell is explained very bluntly. Every day, you can ask the informant 2 questions. The first one being what to do next, which will tell you what you're gonna do that day, give you all the possibilities for all the side quests you can do that day, and also who the main focus will be of this chapter.
The side quests he mentions are important to the story, so I highly advise you do them, but like I said, I won't cover most of them.
And the second question you can ask him is information on the story that happened the day prior. This question will change every day that passes. So for now, it says about the monkeys, which has to do with Tabasa's story. I'm going to bring up what the informant says about every story, since it gives us a very specific insight of Russell's state of mind. So let's see about this one.
Yeah, monkeys sure are annoying. Just like that, am I right? That's why their screeching annoyed you so very much. Too bad about the zookeeper. He must have been curious about a timid boy like you being at the zoo on his own. Well, he was unlucky, wasn't he? If it weren't for the monkeys, I wouldn't have done that myself. Probably. Adults with no sense of caution can be taken down so simply. It was rather pleasant, wasn't it? Admit it. Well, that's the end of that story. Come again now.
I think that the inclusion of the information shop is a really good one, both from a gameplay perspective and a story perspective. In a gameplay sense, being always able to know what you need to do next is always a good thing to give to the player. And from a story perspective, I don't think I have to explain why it's also good to get more insight on the story. So what? You do a fetch quest to fight enemies and the boss, which you draw fake hints on the story, complete the quest, return back to your room, get the full story of what happened, wake up, get some extra information from the TV, return to Dreamland, get more information of what happened after the story, and repeat the cycle? Yeah, actually. That is what the core gameplay is going to be like. Well, less the core gameplay and just the core of the actual game, both the structure and what's actually going to happen. I think that the structure is fine, because I don't think it overstays its welcome. Alongside it not overstaying its welcome, I think that it has also a lot of different stuff to distract you from this loop. That being with the actual story, or with being with just extra fluff that the game may present. So like I said before, everything negative with this game will get drowned out by the story. So let's start putting more focus on the story and get into day 2. Day 2, we follow Gardenia, who's looking for a round frying pan. During this quest, we'll see the first real dungeon of the game. For Tabasa, his dungeon ends up becoming a crossroad for other towns and isn't particularly built around him. For Gardenia's, this dungeon is specifically made for her. The inside of the dungeon mimics a huge house that has seen its days, with birthday presents scattered all over the place. The images we encounter are letters crying blood and birthday presents with some spider legs. These are the lines that they say.
It was a sad birthday. The presents were alone. It was a sad birthday. No letters came from anyone. I don't think Dad or Mom cared at all about the day I was born. It was a sad birthday.
In this dungeon is also the first time we will learn a skill based around a certain emotion. When we knock on this wall, this pops up.
Happy birthday, Russell. The utmost sadness lies behind the unopenable doors, but be careful. There's lots of cream inside the box, and it's itching to hurt you. So, go give sadness, so you can better know your own mind.
Then you get the skill of sadness.
I'd have to state that skill based on emotions are pretty frequent in RPGMaker games. Here though, they're not very significant outside of one instance, which I think is really important, so I want to make it known that we get emotion-based skills.
That's like a different game. Let's like go. From here we reach the boss, which looks like a birthday cake that has basically fallen apart. This is also the first place where we'll see the story influencing the gameplay.
Oh, Gardenia, if you only had wings. If you only had wings then, you'd float in the air and fly to me. Gardenia, I'll give you lots of happiness. My angel. Papa loves you.
After this, Gardenia gets healed to full HP. Pretty well executed new narrative if I say so myself.
Dude, that joke was so fucking funny, it made me want to merge without looking!
HP threshold 1 reach. Let's get into Gardenia's story.
I was invited to a classmate's birthday party. It wasn't like we were friendly. It was the whole class was invited to the party, not just me. Her family was rich. Her dad made many cool meals for her. He made the birthday cake too.
There's a lot of focus on Gardenia's relationship with her dad here, which is interesting considering the lines they presented earlier. Why could that be? HP threshold 2.
Suddenly, I remembered something. I remembered today was my birthday, too. Of course, no one knew that, so no one was celebrating me. During the party, I saw the blessed girl alone, on the staircase landing. I approached her from behind. Could this blessed angel fly?
Public service announcement to all women in RPGMaker games. Do not, for any reason, ever stand alone on top of a staircase. A young boy will come up from behind and push you down the stairs. This has become a very common theme recently in RPGMaker games, so be very aware. We've been piecing together the identities of the victims from these stories. And now we're also getting clues as to who the boss we're facing represents. Gardenia's father, a man whose life has been ruined by Russell's actions. So you can say that in a sense, Russell is coming to realization that his actions has had massive consequences for the people surrounding his victims. Still trying to do his best to drown out those consequences by imagining them as some sort of monster. He doesn't see an actual dad there, he sees a ruined birthday cake. He doesn't consider them human. So with that, he doesn't have to really think about it. His mind is trying to in some way protect himself from the reality of the things that he has done. But how long will that last? We will see. Being the boss and completing the fetch quest, we get some signs that something is clearly wrong.
Not to brag, but my cooking skill is the real deal. Just the other day, my dad? Dad? Just wait a moment. I'll make it real quick.
Gardenia doesn't seem to be herself. Going to the dungeon must have changed her. And Russell, since, by all means, Gardenia is a fiction of Russell's mind. But how badly has it actually affected her?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Russell? Jeez, Russell. Are you okay?
Very clearly not! And things are very clearly starting to fall apart. Keep this in the back of your mind, we'll get an explanation for it later. But first off, we have to find out the entire story of what happened here. There's a new note with this time a drawing of a frying pan on it. Reading it, we get the full story of what happened.
I was invited to a classmate's birthday party. I pushed her forcefully in the back. Her body tumbled down the stairs, and she went squish, like a cake. Happy birthday to me.
Once again, Russell has taken another innocent person's life. Somebody who never did anything wrong. A murder fueled by what we can assume to be envy. Envy of her lifestyle. Just like how he was envious of those who had an older brother. We leave the room once more to face the horror of what we did. Then we wake up back in the same room as before. This time, the VHS gives an explanation of what the goal is of the experiment and how to proceed. The contents of the happy dream will vary greatly depending on your mental state, specifically your level of guilt. And the more intimately you come to know your happy dream, the more you love that world, the more your guilt will increase. Russell has to atone for his sins. He has to face the consequence of his actions and learn to show true remorse over the suffering it has caused on others.
As stated multiple times before, the dream world is a reflection of Russell's mind. And because of that, it helped me make connection that this scene, which we saw prior, was actually his subconscious feeling of guilt which ended up breaking the happy illusion of the dream.
How far can this illusion go? How long before this dream becomes a nightmare? We'll see. Returning back to the happy dream world, it's time to start day 3. But before we actually get to day 3, let's get more information from the informant.
Ah, so you killed that sweet smelling monster. Feels good. That was the smell of her happiness. But to you, Russell, it was only a trigger for intense jealousy. Jealousy is all you're capable of. Blessed as they may be, humans can't become angels. They won't grow wings, they can't fly. I'm sure you knew that, didn't you? So that girl fell upside down, and like a soft cake was smooshed on the ground. That's all it was. Well, that's the end of that story. Come again.
Fueled by jealousy, huh? I guess I was right on the envy note. That marks the end of Gardenia's story. Russell is slowly starting to become more aware of his actions. And it's slowly building up guilt inside of him. This guilt actually reflects itself to this world. For example, now the mailboxes are spewing some black liquid from them. Guild in this game is an actual mechanic with an indicator. The way you can raise your guild is by doing specific scenes or doing some side quests which will raise that guild. Most of the side quests involve you helping some characters whose story you already know of. Completing these side quests will raise your guild level and give you a new skill. I'm not gonna cover all of them in this segment because I don't think they're really that relevant to the main story. Still, it's something important to note out because we need to get our guild high enough. But for now, let's get into day 3's characters, that being the siblings Dogma and Cody. For this fetch quest, we aren't actually fetching any item, but instead of it, we are fetching Dogma, since Cody has to apologize to him for breaking the statue in his church. To do that, we need to go into the new town that has opened up, which will double as this day's dungeon. This dungeon isn't fully personalized like with Gardenia's, but it has more of a connection to the siblings than Tabasa's. For example, there are some segments in this dungeon that will tell us a bit about the story. The enemies we face here are various plants and a matchbox. The combat lines we encounter are as follows.
A church can burn. The sound of a match echoed in the dark. I fled to the darkness of the night. A church can burn. A church wrapped in vines can burn well. A church can burn. Did that fire burn the flowers which were offered to the dead, too?
For this dungeon, to reach the boss, you need to defeat some monsters that are on these weird altars. I mention this because they also have more lines.
It's painful. I can't breathe. How strange. How strange. I can see my body burning. My own body, roaring with flame and burning up, turning to ash. Just like that. Kill the flowers. Set fire to them. Set fire to everything. Set the fire and run away. No one will notice it's all burned. Because it's night now. The cover of darkness will hide you. Don't strike a match. Don't set fire to us. Why would you do that? Humans aren't flowers. But they burn. If you set fire to them, they burn. Just like us.
After defeating them, the town is cast ablaze so you can now fight the boss. This is the boss that made me think that Russell was actually facing the reality of his actions a bit more. When you walk up to the boss, it turns out that they are just a human. They talk to you, and it even has a character portrait. It's not some cake or some disembodied voice talking to you. It's a person.
Yes, those children burned as easily as flower petals. I despise you, boy. These are the flames of anger, full of my sadness and hatred. And prayers for the children.
Cody reacts to this boss. She somehow recognizes it, which is more understandable since, like I mentioned, we aren't facing a monster this time around. During the boss fight, she becomes afraid of fighting. She even starts skipping some turns at the start of the fight because of it. The boss is mostly human but still distorted to set in the illusion. But clearly, it's not enough. She's able to speak coherent words. She actually speaks words that have meaning behind them. She even names both of the siblings. When phase 2 starts, both of the siblings become unsure of finding the boss.
We may be down 2 party members, but at least we have the boss to carry the entire fight. HP threshold 1.
There's a small church at the edge of town. It was a pretty church with pure white walls and lively vines wrapped around it. I often went there to pray. I always saw the slightly stuffy priest and his apparent little sister chatting.
So that's where the 2 siblings come in. HP threshold 2.
Those people wore crosses around their necks. Did those people despise anyone? Would they be forgiven no matter what they did? If a penny can forgive anything, then late at night, I went to the church, poured a lot of gasoline around it, quietly set fire to it and went home. No one saw. Cover of night protected me.
Once again, the way these actions come into fruition, they almost seem for a nonsensical reason. This time around, after defeating the boss, we don't get a tear in the dream scene like we did with Gardenia, but we get something which may be even more interesting. After the boss, if you talk to Cody, they'll mention that they actually recognize the person who we were fighting.
And actually, that statue looks just like her mom. No wonder I had trouble fighting. But that wasn't Mom. Because her mom passed away a long time ago. Right, that wasn't Mom. So, it's okay.
It's starting to make sense. That boss has a justified reason for hating Russell's guts. Of course, he would have also known the names of the siblings. It's like with Gardenia's dad, but this time around, you actually saw him as a human. Why is that? We'll find out soon. Return to your room, the same problem as always, and we get a new note. This one has the church on it.
There's a small church at the edge of town. God, please listen. 2 of your faithful followers have departed to your side.
Almost seems taunting in a way, like there's no remorse for it. Alongside this note, this time the diary has changed again.
This world is lots of fun. Everyone's kind, I can see my favorite sights, I don't have to see bad things. But lately, I feel like something's caught in my head, putting a haze over things. Every time there's a fun thing, I feel a bit of oppressiveness. Is it okay for me to be this happy? Because, in reality, everyone's already... It got a little hard to breathe again. Why is that? Can it be tomorrow soon? If I just meet them all and talk a little, I'm sure I could be feeling fine again.
The experiment is working. You're starting to see what he has done. But it's still not enough now, is it? Time to face your sin. On day 3, the VHS just gives you a reminder that this entire experiment is to make you learn Guild. So, with that out of the way, let's go back to the dream world and get a conclusion to Dogma and Cody's story by the informant.
Ah, the fire. It was on the outskirts, sure, but it's a miracle no one found out. Maybe since it was a moonless night. Didn't believe in any god for a second, did you? And yet, you went to church. Do you even know why? It was to meet the mother of those siblings, surely. She was kind and warm, like a real goddess she was. That's exactly why you envied those two. The nicer those people were, the deeper your hate got. Repentance isn't the same as an indulgence, Russell. It's too late to say anything now. Well, that's the end of that story. Come again.
It really was their mom, huh? It also explains why Russell saw her as a human and not mostly a monster. It explains why it knows Russell and hates him for it. And most importantly, it also explains that, once again, this was a murder fueled by jealousy. This by now should be the common thread of all of the victims. But then day 4 came along, and my theory that I just built up got crushed. This is a chapter that made me realize that I didn't want to give it a normal review like I did with Fear and Hunger 2 or Dark Side of Red Riding Hood. And I want to give it more of an analytical approach like with Cat in the Box. I want to give a complete analysis because it sucked me into it. In other words, don't expect an analysis like this for any other videos for a decent while. These suck the energy out of me. I don't think I can keep doing them for every video. This is just a case where I just really like the story, so I want to get deep into it. Anyhow, day 4. Day 4, we follow Kantera. But before we get into that, there are more urgent matters to attend to. If our guild is high enough at this point, something new pops up. There's a smiley marked on the outside of the tree where Gardenia's dungeon was. Walking inside the tree, we see that there are more smileys over the place. And walking inside the dungeon, we get confirmation that, okay, yep, this is important, we should probably do this. To access the boss, you have to light candles using your anger skill, and you also need to bring Gardenia, so you can actually get access to the boss room. Returning to the boss room, we don't face the cake as the boss. Instead, we face Gardenia. Or well, maybe not Gardenia herself, but at least her corpse. Gardenia is inflicted with confusion. The second battle starts, will start hitting all of the other party members. Russell is face to face with his actions. There's no illusion here to make it think it's a monster. Full art that it's just a human. There's no extra text or guilt from this fight, the only thing you get is a little bonus for Gardenia. But it's a stark reminder that the experiment is working and that the dream is falling apart.
Another change to point out that the dream is falling apart is that the church where Dogma resides has changed. It now shows itself as a church wrapped in vines, which we know why it would look like that. But I want to bring this up because I believe there's something more interesting to note, that being the design it had before. It resembles two graves next to each other. I may be reaching with that, but considering their story, I honestly think that this design was intentional, which is a really cool detail to have hidden in plain sight. Also, as you can probably tell from my mic quality, I legit just noticed the grave design while editing. This game has so much stuff to read into, which is a huge positive if you like to hyperfixate on small details like me. Anyhow, now we can go back to the main story.
Kantera, the doctor who talks like an old man. This is the second real dungeon of the game, being a small area that cannot be reached again after completing the dungeon. This dungeon is the biggest outlier out of all the ones you've had so far. Up to this point, the dungeon, the monsters inside, and what they say were all a reflection of the circumstances surrounding Russell when he decided to take his victim's life. This time around, the dungeon, it's not reflecting on Russell. It's fully reflecting on Kantera. The monsters in this dungeon reflect his heritage and his actions. With a death frame, a Jinso.
A real quick explanation, these are Buddhist statues mainly known for protecting children and travelers. You could think of them like guardian angels, for example.
And also an old ghost. Very on the nose if you know the story. All of the combat lines this time around are retellings of what Kantera had told Russell.
I ran away before I saw his face.
That's what he said, fearfully. So he didn't know the face he would be remembered by.
I killed him. Yet he stands at my bedside.
That's what he said, fearfully. Even though the dead are here no longer.
I can hear the voice of the one I killed.
That's what he said, fearfully. Even though the dead have no mouths.
And Kantera actually knows this. He actually reacts to his surroundings, becoming shocked and starting to point out how much it reflects his own actions. This dungeon is made to taunt Kantera. And finding out Kantera's story, we can see why. The story showed that this dungeon is of someone who pitied his grandfather. Someone he looked up to. When his grandfather's age caught up to him, it made him feel a way he never wanted to know. And with that, he rationalized that the best thing to do is to put his grandfather out of his misery. That's what the dungeon is showing you. This dungeon is also the only one that breaks its structure, forcing you to rest before you can actually continue. When you enter a rest point, you can talk to your party members. And in this case, when you talk to Kantera, he asks you to kill him. Then the game proceeds to give you a knife. Before you can kill him though, the illusion of the dream kicks back in, like nothing ever happened. But still, you keep the knife. The dungeon boss this time around is another obscure manifestation. By that I mean that it's not a human. But also, this boss doesn't reflect on Russell.
Are the elderly sad? At times that eats even into the hearts of healthy youths. Youth is sad, age is sad. As long as they live, everyone is sad. Indeed, as long as they live.
This line to Russell should mean actually nothing. But like I said before, it shouldn't. That's not its purpose. Because it's not reflecting on Russell. It's reflecting on Kantera. Alright then, since it's reflecting so much Kantera, where do you come in? HP threshold 1.
After I killed someone, I was often given shelter in a medicine store in a back alley. The doctor there had come from the east, and not many people visited. He always talked about grandfather, so I got to know a lot about this grandfather I'd never seen, and his home country.
Well, isn't this a new sight? This is somebody who knows of Russell's crimes. Kantera is being set up with them more than just a victim. They knew more about each other than any of the other victims so far. Then I have to ask, why was he okay with it? How was he able to build a bond with somebody who he knew had taken other people's life? And why is this dungeon reflecting more on him than on Russell? HP threshold 2.
One day, the doctor told me, I want you to kill me. So I took a knife from the kitchen and killed him. He and I were both killers. That must be why he gave me shelter. He must have wanted me to kill him someday.
Kantera is haunted by his actions, the ones of taking another person's life. An action Russell is very familiar with, but not with the repercussions of it. The dungeon is taunting him for this, making him face his guilt. A guilt which Kantera decided to set onto Russell, by escaping his actions and forcing Russell to double down on his. He asked Russell to kill him. He doesn't want to live with his guilt, and he used Russell to get rid of it. We're done with the quest. Let's return home and see what extra information we have missed. Returning back to your room, we see that the guilt must be really setting in on Russell, seeing how he's pierced on his own bed. There's a new note now, one with a dragon on it.
After I killed someone. But, doctor, if you die, will you really be at peace?
He at least won't be haunted by his guilt. That's the only peace he could be ensured in death. The diary has changed once more if we did all of the guild events up to this point.
I've stopped enjoying the stream lately. Even though everyone's as kind as ever. No. Because everyone's as kind as ever. Because I see them differently. The dream world seems warped. Eyeballs grow on trees, judging eyes, mailboxes and signs laugh at me. I'm sorry. Stop looking at me so kindly, everyone. If you don't, I feel I'll be crushed by something I can't see.
The weight of his sins is fully visible to him now. Time to face them once more. The VHS tape this day ensures us once more that Russell is part of this experiment because he's a death row inmate, and because he's going to die either way, it's best for him to make himself useful and help with the experiment. So in the end, it doesn't really matter what happens. People in the future will get some help, but Russell will never get any real closure for it. Returning back to Dreamland, it's time to finish up on Kantera's story by asking the informant.
Dragons, eh? Yes, you're the one from the doctor. Those mythical creatures from the east, right? Of course, the doctor told you many other things as well. His land's culture, their way of life, and about grandfather. But Russell, the doctor sheltered you because he wanted you to someday kill him. Nothing more, nothing less, see?
So together you picked herbs, drank tea, stayed the night to confess your sins to one another. It was all for that purpose, right? In the end, you were just used, weren't you? How idiotic. There you have it. Kantera confided in Russell because he knew Russell didn't feel the same things he did after all of his crimes. Kantera was haunted by his grandfather, felt the guilt suffocating him, yet Russell didn't for any of his victims. That's why he used Russell to get rid of his own guilt, because Russell didn't feel any up to that point. And this sets up to be the very first murder that isn't fueled by jealousy or some random bloodlust, but more by a request. Russell has been so desensitized to killing that he did it as a favor, even if that favor had its own selfish reasons. This marks the end of Kantera's story, and from here we follow the next character.
Someone I consider provides some trivial insight for Russell's character, Mireille.
But before we get into Mireille's story, we gotta do another real quick detour to see how much this dream has changed. Russell's guilt is seeping once more into this dream world, and it has made Darkover Town, Cody and Dogma's dungeon, fully distorted. The citizens are a mess, there are monsters everywhere, and the environment is almost horrifying. If you go to the boss area, you'll encounter Cody and Dogma's mother once again, but this time without a hint of illusion behind her. Once again, just a normal human being. Full art and it's just another human. No sign of it being a monster. Cody and Dogma almost falter, but end up rationalizing to themselves that this could never be their mother. But Russell truly knows the truth behind all of this. And with seeing how much the world has changed once again, we can realize that it's really eating away at Russell. Either way, focus on Mireille, the maid of the mayor. The mayor's fallen sick and it's up to you and Mireille to get some medicine from the hospital.
Arriving at the hospital, we get the sign this will probably be the most remarkable dungeon yet.
You must be cautious. The jealous beast is right beside you.
Entering inside, we have to wait in a queue for our turn. Like a normal hospital, this will take an eternity, but we have the luxury of being able to walk around while Mireille stands around and waits for her turn. This dungeon is by far my favorite in the entire game. Like in the other dungeons we had prior, we need to do something very specific to continue. I didn't mention what I was with the other dungeons, so I'm going to do it real quickly. In Tabasa's dungeons, it's a luxury dungeon, you don't have to do anything. For Gardenia, you have to knock on the wall to learn the skill of sadness. In Cody and Dogma's dungeon, you have to light up altars with the skill of anger. And for Kantera's dungeon, you just have to complete riddles and puzzles that don't give you an emotion skill, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, it's going to show up right here. Okay, got that? Don't worry, there won't be a quiz about this. Instead, why don't you press the subscribe button? And while you're at it, also hit the like button. For transparency's sake, I'm just doing this because I learned recently that if I say subscribe and like, the little buttons at the bottom just start glowing. And I think that's really cool. Look at the pretty rainbow colors. Look at that. It's kind of nice. Either way.
Also, you may have noticed I haven't been playing the series theme yet, so have a listen to it now. This song is another reason why we love this dungeon. It's so distinct from anything we've seen so far. It feels so peaceful. You can actually breathe for the first time since you've entered this crumbling dream. And as you're listening to this, you walk around, and you see many people, all the inhabitants of Russell's dream world, just waiting their turn. As well as some pretty interesting creatures, loiters, who present to us the main theme of this dungeon.
The leaves on a four-leaf clover are made from fame, wealth, love, and lastly, health. And to open way to health, which you seek, you must free the jealousies of fame, wealth, and love. So we need to look around for people afflicted by these jealousies. In this case, apparently 3 of them. The term jealous beast was also mentioned when we entered the dungeon. Yet, who could that be referring to? Walking around the wards, we can see that there's some really weird shit going on. You can see that the patient's eyes are almost all crossed out with a red line. And also, when you look around, you can notice some weird things sprouting out from the ground. Some weird growths are taking over most of the hospital, even taking over some patients. Walking around the west ward, we can see that there are a lot of crude drawings done in green on the floor and on the walls. Could be crayon, could be paint. Again, everyone's eyes are crossed out with red. Until we move a little bit further ahead and we find the girl next to the staircase. Their eyes are crossed out green. This girl is different from the others. She is special. Ever since the new girl came here, she's only paid attention to her and stopped caring about me. If only that black bob-haired girl were gone, I would have my love. Yes, I wish she'd just get locked away in some room somewhere. Some dark and scary storerooms. Then I'm sure that girl would play with me again. This must be the jealous beast. When we have this conversation, a green eye appears next to her. The same green eye that appeared at the start of the dungeon. Interact with it, it will tell us this. One of the leaves of four-leaf clover is love, of which this girl is jealous. Destroy the love between those 2 girls for this one's sake. You want the medicine for his health, don't you? This is more specifically the jealous beast of love. And that's how this dungeon is going to work. There are 3 people in this hospital afflicted by jealousy. One of them being the jealous beast of love, the jealous beast of fame, and the last one being the jealous beast of wealth. We have to free them from this sickness by indulging in it. We have to get down with it. We have to get down with the sickness.
Actually, I know I will get down with this sick list. Love gives Cody, so let's start with fame instead.
A boy in the Westward has his bed positioned next to the leader of a super famous football club. Yes, I said football. Because it is football. Fight me. The leader of the club is an arrogant kid who looks down on others. The boy next to him is irritated by the leader's way of thinking and wants him to get off his high horse, by causing him to go through some incident to send that cocky jerk's fame plummeting, which in this case just means pranking him. You go to his nurse to learn that he's afraid of spiders, go to the bathroom to grab a spider, show him the spider, and you watch him run away in fear. The boy filled with jealousy laughs as he watches his victim run away in fear, knowing that he isn't some big tough guy. And with that, his jealousy is freed, but not to the extent he wants to believe. The green eye shifts to where the leader stood. You freed his jealousy by making that boy who looked down on him run away at the sight of a little bug. However, even so, his fame itself hasn't suffered a scratch. Foolish boy. Yet it is something that freed his jealousy. Maybe because of the fact that the boy accepted that that's something he can't really do anything about. It was very easy to resolve, even if he did take some actions which could be viewed as mean. So in the end, there really isn't anything gained or lost. It was just a harmless prank. From here, we move on to the jealous beast of love. This girl is jealous of the friendship that these two other girls have. Want to spend more time with her friend, who's currently, instead, spending time with a black bob-haired girl. So you have to destroy their love and their friendship, according to the green eye. With the previous one, destroying it wasn't something that extreme. So let's see how we deal with this one. We see the blonde girl is gone, and the black bob-haired girl is now alone. Talking to her, she tells us the blonde one, who's named Melissa, is gone for a checkup and that she's bored right now. She didn't ask you to play can hide and seek with her, but just entails you hiding a can in some place. From what the jealous girl said before, we know a place where we specifically have to hide it. Hide the can and tell the girl to go seek it. You freed her jealousy by leaving that bob-haired girl in a dark, scary storeroom and having her killed by wandering creatures. However, even so, whether Melissa will give any love back to her is another story entirely. Foolish girl. This time, we didn't commit just a harmless prank. We've caused the other girl to disappear and never come back. Something that the jealous beast was aware of. Melissa's now saddened that her friend is gone, and the green-eyed girl is pleading for her attention, for her to just forget the other girl. Yet, it is not as simple as that. Her love is unrequited, and all three are worse off now. Well, one of them is actually dead, so one of them is worse off than the others, but you get what I mean. The jealous beast is freed, now just replaced with grief. But that's not the worst one. Moving on to the last one, and probably the most outrageous one, the jealous beast of wealth. There's a nurse fantasizing about being rich. She brings up the nurse on the floor below her, who actually comes from a wealthy family. Her jealous delusion convincing her that that nurse must be working here to look down on the common people, and she hopes that she one day makes a mistake and gets fired. Punish someone with much wealth for her sake. Go downstairs, talk to the nurse, and we find out that she's just a regular nurse. It's not like with the leader of the club where he turned out to be arrogant. This is just actually somebody who just cares about their job. She thinks that this job is important to do. It's work worth doing. So right off the bat, we can't really say that she's a bad person. After talking to her, she leaves to handle the patient examination room.
You know this is going to lead to anything good by now, don't you?
By interacting with the syringe at the table, you can change the contents of them. The contents of them are written in the book next to them. Currently, it has purple medicine, which is harmony, goodwill. Green being jealousy, ill will, which has been the main theme of this dungeon. And then we have red, which is murder, bloodlust. Swapping with the green medicine, the nurse injects it into her patient without knowing. A shriek comes from inside as the nurse runs out looking for a doctor for help. Walking inside, we see the patient on the floor, puking blood from the injection. Walking around, we can't find the nurse, so we return to the jealous beast. She informs us that, because of this incident, the nurse will probably not stay here any longer, and that the patient should be fine. We made an innocent nurse lose her job, and made a bystander get hurt for no reason, just to fulfill the illusion of this jealous beast. Completing all three tasks, a speaker system goes off, informing us that we can now continue. Mireille even comes to pick us up. But, before we do that, you're probably wondering. Let's find out. Shriek, nurse comes running out, but this time when you check in on the patient, it says that the patient is most likely dead. Going back to the rooftop, we see the nurse from before running to the edge of the roof. Moving to where she went, we see the jealous beast talking to herself. You inform her that the nurse has accidentally injected somebody with red medicine.
No, but that's no reason to kill herself too, is it? It's not my fault. I didn't want to kill anyone. She just jumped on her own. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this at all. I'm sorry.
Walking to the edge of the roof, we see the nurse's shoes and the green eye. You freed her jealousy, but making a wealthy daughter jump off the roof from shock. However,
Even so, it hasn't brought herself any money. Foolish woman.
Her jealousy is freed, but an innocent nurse has taken her own life, an innocent bystander has died, and a jealous beast has transformed into one of the growths. What are those growths? Well, it's a final step of jealousy. The first symptom of this illness is manifesting green eyes, and from there, it will lead up into you becoming one of the purple stems. Those same stems you've seen all over the place in the hospital. The reason why I went to extreme detail for this segment is, for one, I adore this segment. I love everything done with it. I like the story and I like the way that it's handled, where you don't actually have to face any encounters. It shows to me a way this game could have played out if it just didn't have this combat that slowed everything down. It doesn't have the combat to slow down the pacing, and it lets the writing shine on itself. But more importantly, the reason why I mentioned this segment is because of a very clear theme of jealousy, and also the connection of jealousy with green eyes. And because when we walked in, a green eye appeared to us and said that, watch out, there is a jealous beast beside you. So who could it be talking about? Well, looking at our party, we can probably say that it's Mireille. But is that really the case? Let's look at a wider scope here. Who else also has green eyes? Outside of Mireille, the other people that has green eyes is Saxon, which makes sense since he's also very connected to the story. But there's another character which also has green eyes. That being the informant. So it makes me think, is that green eye at the start warning us about Mireille? Or is it warning us about Russell? Since we can see from all the previous murders, he is fueled by jealousy a lot. Going with Mireille to the second floor of the West Ward, we go back to having enemies around us. Thankfully, they aren't random encounters and you can just fully ignore them. The enemy on this floor are the same ghost monsters that both killed the black-haired girl and told us about the clover. The lines that they say don't personally reflect on Russell, but they give us a bit of world building insight on what the real hospital could have been like.
The things that loiter around the building eat children in dark and scary places. That rumor was told at the hospital.
Well, it does reflect on Russell a bit, explaining that he was in this hospital at some point. Probably a lot, since he managed to even hear a rumor. If you want more of an explanation what these things could be, the notes on the walls could give you more of a realistic view of what these things actually are. Either way, let's move forward toward the boss. The boss of this place is a giant black cat with a green eye for its head.
Green eyes are an embodiment of jealousy. Are they mine, or hers, or perhaps his eyes? All people keep a jealous beast. Yes, everyone does.
Mine, hers, or his. Look, in hindsight, this line is really interesting because of the things it mentions. Hers, we could probably refer to Mireille. His, we could probably refer to Saxon. But mine? Why would it mention mine?
When that hit me, I got bruises. Whenever I got a bruise, I went to the hospital in secret. Though I didn't have any of the necessary documents or any money, there was a nurse who secretly brought me cold compresses.
Once again, we hear Russell talk about his dad and how much of a bad impact he had on his life. We heard it originally with Tabasa, but here it is, brought up once again. And also we're deep enough in this game where I don't have to explain that the nurse is Mireille. HP threshold 2.
When she lost the will to live and cried, saying, "Kill me," I repaid my debt to the nurse by pushing her off the roof. After paying my debt, I found her diary. It was the vicious red diary of a woman mad with jealousy.
That last part explains her having green eyes and the warning that the jealous beast was beside us. But hold on, that first part. Once again, this isn't a murder born out of malice or envy, but by a request. The same with Kantera. In this case, I don't think Mireille knew of his past, but we still have her paint his hands red with her death. After defeating the boss, the speaker system calls us once again.
Mireille, Russell, thank you for your efforts. Next, come to the roof. Come to the rooftop and watch her. She falls.
Something is wrong, and Russell can feel it. Going to the roof, Mireille runs off to find the medicine. We find her at the edge of the roof, the only part without a fence to stop her from falling. The light around us has dimmed. It's quiet. The only thing we can hear is a low hum. On the floor, there are bloody arrows pointing us to where we need to go. Inside of a dark, closed-off room, there's a diary with writing in red.
We know whose it is, and we know what's inside isn't going to be pleasant.
When you speak with your wife, you look to be very relaxed. Why is that? She'd only come to visit you a few times since you were hospitalized. Why is it that I'll never be able to beat such a woman? It's regrettable. I don't remember when, but you once told me.
I'm envious of your health.
You and I are both jealous people. People with green eyes. I want to be by your side always. Not as patient and nurse. Nothing to do with that. I love you, just as a person. If I could be by your side, I would be as obedient as a servant and offer everything to you. When I see you suffering, I should be very sad. But for some reason, I laughed. Because if I didn't call for the doctor and didn't give you this medicine, then I alone could be there in your final moments. That's what I realized. In a world without you, I don't have any desire to live. I'm glad I met you. I'll make this diary I wrote with you into my final message and say goodbye.
I guess we're done here. Let's leave.
Russell, thank you for your efforts. Are you done now? Please take your leave. Goodbye.
There's not a single being inside of this hospital anymore.
Leaving the hospital, it has fully become nighttime. There appears to be somebody waiting for us outside. What are you doing out here, yeah? This hospital, yeah? It's been closed for a while now. Gotta be demolished soon. First there was a medical mishap, then a nurse jumped to her death. Lots happened. So yeah, no good omens there, basically. You better leave quick, yeah.
Beast with this fucking penguin doesn't have more lines. Oh, for fuck's sake.
Eh? A pink-haired girl? Don't know about that. I mean, I've been here a while. Didn't see anyone leave, yeah?
Now that's something the Dream hasn't done before. This entire thing apparently shouldn't have been possible. Yet, we have the medicine. And more importantly, Mireille is not with us. Nobody's with us actually, but it's more concerning considering what just happened. Walking around the Dream at night, especially with the soundtrack, makes the environment feel way more eerie. Returning back to town, the first person we see is Dogma, who's actually patrolling around the town looking for a monster.
I've no doubt going to that distant hospital by yourself was an ordeal. You ought to call it a day.
Hang on, by yourself? No, we went with Mireille.
Mireille? I'm fairly sure she was at the mayor's side all day. Were you dreaming or something? I commend your good deeds, but watch your health, please.
What? This is completely new. We had a lot of glimpses of the Dream shattering and things being distorted. But an entire day? Is Mireille actually fine?
Russell, I was worried how late you were out. I assume it must have been crowded at the hospital. Sorry to take up your time. So, did you get the medicine I asked for?
With that, our fetch quest is complete. If we talk to Mireille again, Russell tells her that she came along with us. To which she responds he was nursing Saxon the entire day and we must be joking around. Either way, we're done for today. Returning back... Well, isn't that new? Something has entered the stream and left some notes around. Interacting with the notes, or postcard more specifically, we recognize that the handwriting is very familiar to us. These notes are also tracing a path to somewhere. Well, let's follow the path and read those notes.
Do you know where I am now? I'm always close to you. You just can't see me. But I'm actually right there. Ah, I love you so. Hurry and find me soon. Hurry. Hurry, hurry. I want you to find me quickly. You're dying to meet me too. That's why you're looking for me every day, right? Oh, but a little more. I want to watch you from here too, wandering in search of me, seeking me more. Why won't you answer my calls? Why, when I love you so much? Is there some other man there? That's it, isn't it? I won't let that stand. You should look for me, get mad at me, smile at me. You belong to me. You can't see me, can you? Do you know why? Do you know my love? I'm in your shadow. I'm right behind you. Just at your back always. Close enough to hear you breathe, but soon enough, I want you to see me too. When shall I appear before you? Say, when would be best? When?
Looking at where the postcards lead, it's right outside the house of Yumi, the sheriff. Her mailbox is filled to the brim with those letters and it's all spilling over the floor.
Oh, you're truly beautiful. I'm always looking at you. Even now, I'm watching from somewhere. You got back rather late yesterday. Was it your night shift? I was very worried. I was waiting at the front door, Yumi. Such a dangerous job doesn't suit you. All your beauty needs is my love. Isn't that enough? It was my son that introduced us, but for you, I would abandon my family, my wife, my son, my home, my job.
Reading this is making me sick. I don't want to read anymore.
These notes are clearly setting up a deeper connection between what we can assume to be our father and Yumi. It's a teaser of what's to come the next day. Let's not delve too deep into it now, since we still need to clear up Mireille's story. Back to your room, and a new note has appeared, this time with a drawing of a hospital.
When Dad hit me, people who look like they're kind are just good at hiding their dirty hearts.
For the final time, the diary has changed.
No one but Dream turns to blame me. Everything here is kind. And that's just painful for me now. As much as I suffer, I can't save anyone now. Because this is after everything is all over. And now I can understand. This is guilt. In this world of kindness, I was finally able to learn it. I'm sorry, all of you. Please, don't be nice to me. I can't bear that kindness. Despise me, please. Kill me, please. I've just had enough. Free me from this experiment.
After all this time, Russell's had his wits' end. The one thing he'd never knew with experience is now crushing him. He finally understands. The experiment has worked. We're not done yet. We haven't repented enough.
Watching her go distant, further and further down, how exactly did you feel?
You've completed day 5, which apparently is the day where they measure Russell's guilt. Or more simply put, the bad end split. If during the game you've done a single guilt raising event, then you will get the bad ending here. They say that you haven't passed the necessary threshold of the guilt that you needed, and that you're being brought back to death row. In the final screen of the game, they say the rehabilitation program has not had a success yet. Bam! The end. Normal end. Cool, epic. Okay, back to the normal game. We have 50 guilt, so we're never gonna get that normal end. Anyhow, back into Dreamland we go, because we still need to finish up on Mireille's story with no Are you fucking... Yumi at the door and she tells you the entire town is having a meeting in her house since there are important matters to discuss. Okay, now we can go finish up Mireille's story.
Ah, yes. That nurse was so friendly and gentle, it almost felt unnatural to you. So unaccustomed to kindness. But Russell, she was human too, you see? There can't possibly be a human without some dirty feelings. However, you misunderstood, so you set yourself up for disillusionment upon seeing her diary. At the same time, you felt great fear toward her for being so attached to a person. Yet whatever kind of person she was, it doesn't change the truth that she was, in fact, kind to you. Well, that's the end of that.
Once again, we have Russell taking his victim's life because it was a favor. Mireille and Kantera were both killers, and they both ended up getting killed by Russell in the end.
Now we can finally get into Yumi, who's been trying to cut into Mireille's story for a while now.
Everybody's gathered at her house to think of a plan to put a stop to the monster that terrorizes the town at night. You'll pair up with someone of your choosing to patrol at night, and also while you're at it, take them out on a cute little outing to the festival that's happening in the only town that's not corrupted. If you plan on playing this game on your own after this video, this is a very important choice. Depending on who you choose here, it will change the ending. So don't just randomly choose somebody who you actually want. For this video, and because I actually like Kantera, I chose Kantera. Alright, let's enter the festival with our partner, and nothing happens here, it's just slice of life stuff. Leaving the festival, it's already nighttime, so it's time to start our patrol. Heading back to town.
Russell, don't you know you shouldn't be out so late? Where were you? Did you do something bad again? Where's that pretty police lady? Isn't she with you today? Useless. Useless! Fine. Dad'll go meet her himself. I know her address and phone number.
We give chase to find Yumi outside of town, trying to stop him from entering. Oh, that's not a good thing to see. It's one thing to hear the actions of his father, but to fully see that this is what his manifestation is like, alongside having to fight him and him being the monster haunting the town, it gives a very saddening idea of how his real life version could have been like. We already knew he was scum, but this is just depressing to see. This fight is a two-parter. Getting far enough into the fight, he will emit a beer stench vapor which will knock out the entire party. Afterwards, he retreats back into the forest. Which again, if you think about it deep enough, it's a pretty sad thing to see. We give chase to find an entire thing appearing in the forest. This right here is the final dungeon. At the entrance of the final dungeon, Russell's dad appears once more. This time, we are taking him out.
This is the normal boss fight.
This isn't the same as the rest. Our HUD has changed to reflect that. There's a very special meaning to this fight, alongside having a really cool fight theme.
Oh, my Yumi. I love your fierce eyes as you chase after me. Seek me more. More.
Why would Russell's dad have such a deep connection to Yumi? Well, like all the other story fights, we're gonna find out as we go. HP threshold 1.
After school, I didn't go straight home. I didn't want to go back to my parents and wander around town late into the night. When the police caught me, I was always taken to custody. It was the same person every time. A powerful, blonde lady. The police lady laughed and called me such a bad kid, sending me home every time. That's how Dad met her.
I think we can piece together that Russell probably did something to Yumi, like we've seen him do to all his other victims. But what specifically? Well, let's find out how Russell killed her. Right? HP threshold 2.
I despised the degenerate love Dad had for that lady. I stopped walking around at night. That way, they would never meet. But one day, when I got back from school, Dad had her there. Disgusting. The beer. It reeks of beer! You filthy monster! Die!
This isn't focusing on how Russell killed Yumi. This is focusing on how Russell killed his dad. He even learns a new emotion to go alongside this, one which isn't rooted in any guilt. There is no guilt for this murder. He doesn't feel bad for this. He is, in his eyes, a monster. And he always will be. Russell will never feel remorse for murdering him. And he won't now. That's why he learned bloodlust. Let's succumb to it.
Why, Russell? Why do you get in Dad's way? I'm out of beer. Russell, go buy me beer. Go buy me beer. Go buy beer. You me.
With that, the evil is defeated. But there's no triumph or joy in Russell. The opposite even. Look at Russell's face, which shows sadness. There is now an unfillable void inside of Russell. Nothing can be done about this. Russell is completely pale from this fight. Yumi and her partner, in this case Kantera, think it's from exhaustion. Kantera offers to bring us back home. Right before he departs to tell everything to the mayor, it seems like Russell wants to speak out, to say something.
What's that? Have you a message for Saxon? I can convey it for you.
We know that Russell can't say anything. Whatever it can say, it doesn't matter.
Why, what's the matter? It's not some eternal parting. No need to be so lonely. I suppose anyone can become lonely when feeling under the weather. I understand your feelings well. Have no concern. Once I've reported into Saxon, I'll come check on you again. Now, I'm going, alright? Stay warm and sleep well. So long.
These people are dead. that the diary says nobody will ever blame Russell. They will always be kind to him. He who has taken their lives from them. Russell will never be able to wipe his sins. Let's read his final sin. The final note we will encounter.
After school, I hit Dad with a beer bottle from the floor. The lady had gone cold under him. I saw she'd been strangled. Mom was gasping in the other room. Yes, these people are nothing but harmful. Just by being alive, they're able to make me feel so unpleasant.
Russell never killed Yumi. He never hurt her. He never even put a hand on her. Yet, she is still here in this dream town. His dad was as much a monster as he was, with his own sin taking her life. For Russell, envy, and for his father, lust. And his mother is in the other room. And what appears from the note, he wasn't done there.
Which is precisely what is shown to us. On the couch lay Russell's dad and Yumi. In the other room, we see a glimpse of Russell's mother. Her stomach has been cut open, with the murder weapon laying next to her. The same bottle of beer that was used on his father. This isn't a scene that can easily be wiped off. From all the murders so far, this isn't one that Russell can run away and hide from. His house, his family, it's covered in blood he has shed. There is no out for this. This is the end of the road. It's all over. I don't know what I should do now. I'm really tired. I feel sick. Maybe I should go to the police. I'll tell about everything. I don't want to do anything else. I know. I'll bring the diary where I wrote how I killed them all. Because I have to get them to believe me. If you at some point in this video wondered why all of his victim stories were written out on loose notes, well, it's because those notes on the floor of the dream, they were pages from the diary. The same one that warps with how much guilt we gain, sitting there the entire time next to his bed, right in plain sight. Still covered in blood, Russell retrieves his diary. If I take this with me, the police should believe me, that I'm a murderer. Hey, Mom? Dad? Why was I born?
And like always, Russell awakens in his cell. Today we are informed that the experiment is coming to a close, and that Russell may be pardoned from the death penalty after today's injection. Which is a good thing! Right? Let's all delay it and enter the dream one last time. But this time, the diary is not next to us. Instead, there's a little basket. A small visitation gift from our partner.
I kept my word and came to visit, but you appear to be sound asleep. So, I'll leave this for you. Rest well.
Isn't that nice of him? Or well, is that nice of Russell to imagine? He's not coming back. Russell killed him. This act is just Russell making himself feel better. But you know who he didn't kill? Yumi. Yet, she's still here. How come? We're about to find out soon as we go to the informant.
That woman. You liked her. Even being the bad kid you were, she helped you every single time. So adults can be nice, you thought. That's why you endeavored to keep her from meeting Dad. Though it was too little, too late. I think it was Dad who killed her. I didn't directly do it. However, if the mistake of the meeting is the same as me killing her, that's what you thought. And that's why that lady is here. Here in this dream, she ended up not being killed by Dad. It'd be nice if that were the reality. You know what this line shows? Guilt. Russell felt it back then for Yumi having met his father, coming to the conclusion that her demise was his fault.
Then you may ask, why is Saxon here? Is that who we're following today? No, actually, Saxon's a bit of a plot hole. I will say, there is a bit of a reason for Saxon being here, concluding that he's the patient of Mireille. It makes sense for Mireille to have something to be dependent on, and also Saxon is a bit of a stand-in as the mayor of this dream place. Still, from a main story perspective, Russell has never ever met Saxon. He's not one of his victims. He is just here as filler for both somebody to be the mayor of this place and somebody to have Mireille look afterwards. Anyhow, since we don't follow Saxon for today, then who's left? No one. For the final day, we have to clear the dungeon that appeared. Before heading to the dungeon, you can notice that every single place surrounding us is fully corrupted.
Inside the final dungeon, there are beer bottles and cradles scattered all over the place. The enemies around here I don't think have any significant importance, except for the beer bottle of course, but I believe they have the most important lines in the game.
Your guilt, just beginning to throb, is coming to kill you. Your guilt, just beginning to move, is coming to kill you. Your guilt, just beginning to walk, is coming to kill you. Surging with red liquid, we were your final weapon.
Not sure if you've noticed, but all of these lines have an icon box next to them.
You will see this one a lot during the character study, because this is Russell's guild. It has caught up to him, and it is here to kill him. In the room before the final boss, we find a blue book.
You weren't born by choice. You ruined my life.
Mom always said the same thing. Isn't it stupid? If you can't love me anyway, at least kill me once I was born. Both his parents hated Russell, and never showed him any love, which could be another reason for the bloodbath happening. Going forward, there's a painfully long hallway, lined with empty cradles and pictures. These depict a plethora of things, but I'm only going to show the two which I think are the most important. The first one shows Russell in the corner of a class photo. In this picture, he's explicitly described as emotionless. The second shows a family picture where they're all smiling, at a glance happily. Walking down the hallway and interacting with all of the cradles, we get a glimpse of guilt fully taking over this dungeon. This place is your cradle. Why was I even born? Your head filled with such guilt. You see me, it's all you can think about. You deeply hated your parents, so you killed them. But what about the others? They didn't do anything to spur your hate, much less your murder. Your guilt will speak to you the further you go. Russell, open your eyes. Look behind you. The things you're walking around with are all just corpses. This is for Russell to bear alone, no longer hiding behind the people who he has killed. What you had was the fear of the unknowable. The things you didn't know were the beautiful, kind things in the world. Your fear of these unknowns turned to aggression. What? Stop tormenting all the people in this world? What are you talking about? Isn't it you tormenting all the people in this world? Isn't it your own guilt?
Once again, with another fight with one of her parents. At the start it may seem that it was going to be normal and maybe kinda nice. But no, in the end, Russell thinks the same of both of his parents. Hideous monsters. So you can also make the point that they were both consumed by the same sin of lust. I actually don't have a lot to say about this fight, since the same sentiment was already put forward with the dad fight, so let's just get through this quickly. In this one, it at least wants to emphasize the point that Russell never saw love from either one of his parents. After defeating her, Russell has the same saddened glance in his eyes as he had after defeating his dad. Neither of his parents ever showed love to him. The only thing he ever wanted.
After you leave the dungeon, it disappears behind you into nothingness. And then you encounter the only person that could be here. Well done, Russell. How do you feel? Sorry to startle you. I figured things would be wrapping up soon, so I came to check. Now then, that's all the sins you committed. How was it? Did you learn a little guilt? Oh, are you worried for the others? Don't worry, they're all fine. Your investigation to the cradle has been made a solitary effort. They won't vanish on you, because they still have a role left. A very, very important role to let you succeed in this experiment. Let's save the details till we're back in town. You seem to be tired. I'll be in the usual location. Once you're mentally prepared, come talk with me. I'll be waiting, Russell.
I don't think this takes a genius to figure out, but this is a warning that we're going to close the curtain soon.
There's nothing else to do, so let's just watch the ending of the story unfold. You felt sufficient guilt about killing everyone now. It hurts, doesn't it? This world is built to collapse the more you blame yourself. As long as you have that guilt, the collapse can't be stopped. The stream will slowly warp and eventually disappear. Thus, before that happens, you must, by your own hand, put an end to this world. It is time for the ending split. Let's go with the bad end first. We tell the informant that we don't want to leave the dream world. After asking if we're sure we want to live in a collapsing dream, we confirm our thoughts. He tells us that if that's what we want, then so be it. So we go back to our room to fall asleep. In reality, the doctors handling the experiment found us not waking up from the dream, concluding that it has led to failure. Back inside the dream, whoever we chose at the festival comes to pick us up and enjoy our now normal everyday life, even with our surroundings clearly falling apart bit by bit. Everything's just like normal. That's good. It's alright. This is fine. Good morning, everyone.
But now I know, but it says truant! It is actually truant 2, because it's the bad truant. And that's a point of criticism. Don't have multiple truants for a game, especially if one is way more detailed than the other. It will just lead to confusion for those actually enjoying the story and make discussion about it even harder, since people will start calling things the true end and the true fake end. But if you just want to say that they're both actual possibilities, you could just call them end 1, end 2, because we already had the bad end. That's just my own belief of it. I think having multiple things be called true end just takes a lot away from the impact of you actually saying that something is the true ending of it. That's why they're called true endings. It's like saying that there's a true ending and a real ending. What do you mean? It's the same fucking thing. So you just don't have multiple true ends for a game. You can just say they're both normal endings. Either way, let's get back to narrative and let's get into the real true end that I sadly have to call the real true ending. We ask the informant what we should do, and he tells us the only way we can escape from this experiment.
The fact that this world is your dream, and what you did to everyone, you must reveal those truths to just a single person. By doing that, this dream will end. And over in the real world, you will become the first success of the Happy Dream Rehab program. Now, go, Russell, to the person you most want to see one last time, to tell them everything. This is our farewell too. Goodbye, Russell. At last, I can return to you.
Our decision can't be undone anymore. The only way to put an end to this nightmare is by confessing all of your sins to one person. That person being the one you brought to the festival. I already tried, you can't talk to anybody else except for the person you decide to bring to the festival. Well, since we know who I chose, let's just head to their home. We walk up to him and he greets us as usual, being worried about us. And this is where we will make our final choice. It's time to repent.
This world is your dream, and we were... My. A new kind of joke? Quite twisted for your standards. For a moment, I thought it was true. Russell. I see. It seems it wasn't a lie. Which means... Ah, yes. This is the place. This is where you... Well, in truth, I thought something amiss, though I had no proof of it. Since sometimes my memories would get confused. Ah, so it wasn't the onset of dementia? Well, that's a relief. Now then, Russell, given you're telling me this, what do you seek from me? It's fine. Go ahead and say it. I do believe I understand. The feeling of wanting to be killed. Yes, as I thought. You can be so adorable, Russell. What I once asked of you, now you ask it of me. What a laugh. But are you truly sure? Even if I stab you here, your sins won't vanish. As such, shall we not pretend I heard nothing here tonight, and continue to all live together? Russell. Sorry to waste your time. That was merely my own desire. Please, forget about it. Perhaps we may be make-believe in comparison to the real us. Even so, for those of us born here, the days we spent with you were everything. And those weren't so bad. Alright. Are you ready now? I'll do it soon. Good night, Russell.
With that, the monitor turns on once again. This time it congratulates us as we've successfully passed the Happy Dream Rehabilitation Program. And because it was the first success in the entirety of its program, Russell has been spared the death penalty. He now has his entire life ahead of him. The monitor tells you to sit tight as officials are coming to pick us up and escort us from this place. And then the monitor turns off. Congratulations, Russell. You can now have a new life. That's what he wanted from the start, right?
Living a life filled with guilt, now knowing and aware of every excruciating detail of his sins, like how he took the lives of mostly innocent people. Isn't it great to live that life, knowing that those people could have been, and at some point were, the only people that showed him any type of kindness, the only people decided to open up their hearts for him just for a moment, to let him escape his misery, just for him to take away their entire lives for doing so? Every happy moment in that dream was a lie, and now he's back in the real world. He will never, in the rest of his life, see or interact with them ever again. Well, at least happily. And he will never, ever be able to deny or ignore it. He can't anymore. He succeeded the experiment. He now knows what guilt is like. He will know that guilt for every second of his life. And he's young, so he has a lot of life ahead of him. Serial killer must read well on resume, no? Such a long, wonderful life where he knows what a horrible murderer he was. Russell's now alone. The only thing he knows now is guilt. Surely, this is exactly what Russell wants.
Remember what the other people filled with guilt in this game wished for? Well, I don't have to explain why, but Russell wishes for the same. Looking at a syringe that was normally filled with the medicine that took us to his dream world, the one thing that was always in this room, Russell comes to a conclusion on the only way he could actually repent. Pointing the syringe at his neck, he has one final thought.
I'm sorry, everyone. It was all a dream for my sake. These few days were the most fun, peaceful days I've ever had. Thank you for giving me so many memories. I'm glad I got to meet you all. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
With that, the credits begin to roll. But they never end. The only way to end it is by closing out the game. Narratively, this game is absolutely incredible. I said this before, but I came to this game with zero expectations. Hell, I was even looking against playing this game.
But hey, look at that, and here we are.
You can see how happy I am that I played this game, just by the sheer amount of time I've been talking about this game. That is because I had so much to say about this game, because I can feel the amount of love put into its narrative. It was able to tell a phenomenal story. A story about a killer who is forced to face his actions by interacting with his victims and coming to terms with what he has done. But that's not how I would describe the story. This isn't just a story about some killer. This isn't just some person whose circumstances made him turn into a monster. This story isn't about his victims, or the experiment, or the crazy dream world, or any of that. This story, since the very start, was focused on one thing. With the game ending, I still had one question blaring in my head. Because even with everything I've shown you, I want to know more. And the game provides us with more. The most important aspect about this game. Who is Russell? I originally beat the game by only doing a guild defense for the victims, which will be enough to let you see both of these endings. Originally, this video would have ended here with just a story summary. But then I decided to do the other guild events in this game, and I'm not gonna lie, I was immediately absorbed by them. I originally thought I would take this story at face value, having Russell be an intentionally fake character who you can piece a very simple story of abuse for. But after doing all the guild events, I realized there were so many more details to Russell's character. Remember at how at the start of the video I said it was an amazing character study? It's time to study that character, and alongside I want to bring a timeline of events. So first off, let's set in stone this timeline. I originally thought that the timeline looked something like this. And the reason I thought of this was purely and solely for the reason that this is a good indication of the murders ramping up in intensity. To me, it seems more logical that the very first murders a 14-year-old would commit was pushing people to their deaths. Gardenia being the most logical one, since her death was the most fueled by envy. But this timeline just didn't sit well with me, for the reason that I literally had nothing else to go off of. So I thought about it once more, and after a lot of consideration, I decided that I should just take this timeline at face value. So the way the game presents these deaths, I'm just gonna believe that that's how they actually happened. I've not seen anything to discredit this current timeline. Again, I could be wrong. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. This timeline also goes alongside well with motive. The first three were all motivated by some form of envy or jealousy. Russell was jealous of those who had a loving environment, or someone to support them as family, which he projected into Tabasa, seeing as an older brother type. Same for Gardenia for having people in her life care for her and celebrate her birthday, something he never saw. The most important of which was that the birthday cake was made by their father, a man who dearly loved his daughter. And the last one being Dogma Cody, who was jealous of for having an actual loving mother that cared for them. So in the end, all of these are fueled by envy. Jealous of not having had a loving family. Jealous that he didn't have a sibling to depend on. Jealous that he didn't have a father that loved him. And jealous that he never had a mother that actually cared for him. The following two were consumed by guilt and asked Russell to free them from it. Kantera is consumed by the guilt of taking his grandfather's life, and Mireille from taking Saxon's life. Now I'm not 100% sure on motive in this case, since I'm not sure if Mireille wanted to die because of the guilt that she had, or simply because she just didn't have anything else to live for. So instead you could say that the motive was just Russell being asked to take them out of their misery. But still, at its core, the motivation behind Russell killing these people was because they pleaded him to. Then the last one, being his parents, was purely motivated by bloodlust. Russell thought from the very depth of his heart that everything bad surrounding him and surrounding everybody around him was because they were monsters. Somebody who was affected by his parents was, for example, Yumi. So now that we place down the timeline alongside with motives, we can start making some assumptions about Russell. We can conclude a lot of different things for Russell, some even contradicting each other. We can say that he was an envious person that, consumed by his own sin, took the lives of innocent people. We can say there was a young child that was used by the selfish people around him to free them from their sin. We can also say that he's a victim of parental abuse, who in the end made some very poor decisions. And we aren't going to stop there. The point of this timeline and of these interpretations is to build upon them. I want to show that he is not a character that's written in black and white. Russell is an insanely intriguing character. So, let's start off with some events in his life. Let's start off with the very first event in Russell's entire timeline. The one which, in theory, changes his entire outlook on basically everything.
On day 5 in Mireille's dungeon, you can find an item called a red compass, which opens up a new dungeon. Upon entering, you get a glimpse of Russell's past as his guilty conscience speaks to him. When Russell was younger, he had a pet rabbit which he adored, but one day, it escaped his care and ended up getting run over by a truck, right in front of his eyes. A tragedy which scarred him for life.
The entire dungeon is filled with blood, dead rabbits, and some very telling signs that this was definitely a very important moment in Russell's life. If you get to the end of the dungeon, you learn the emotion of pity and find a diary, retelling his thoughts at the time. While he was laying there with his dead rabbit, people would walk by and show their pity, but nobody actually did anything about this rabbit or Russell. From there, Russell's perspective on pity was warped, thinking that it was just for show. But that's not his only perspective that was warped at the time. He was speechless looking at the rabbit's corpse. He didn't feel sadness though. He observed that life could be taken so easily, and in a sense, in that moment, Russell's own life would have also been taken away.
And keep in mind that this happened when Russell was much younger, so you can imagine how much of an impact this had on him. Well, actually, you don't have to. We know what follows from this. It made him think that, quote, some life can be killed without any resentment. This event is what I believe to be the trigger. What turned Russell into the emotionless boy described in one of the pictures. What made him rationalize the idea of taking someone's life. What made him capable of committing such heinous crimes. That's why I'm putting this at the start of the timeline. From here, I'm going to jump to the end of the timeline. In other words, the final event for the start of the game.
While we're here, none of the events take place in the middle of the murders, so I'm going to condense the timeline for us. There, much better.
Starting from day 2, you can enter the house to the left of your room. This place is just a fast travel hub that allows you to teleport around the game easier. Which honestly I don't think that was necessary since the map is decently spelled so you can easily walk to the location you need to. But on the start of day 3, a new location opens up. An eye on the floor which takes you to, well, you.
Going inside, we see a big hallway with shadow versions of Russells roaming around, which is the same hallway as the one shown in the bad true end.
The Russells in here talk about what happened after Russell turned himself in. In the first room is a recollection of his trial, how he was sentenced to death and to be used as a test subject for the rehabilitation program, saying that while he's in this program, he will count the days until it's over, yearning for death.
The middle room shows the murder that made Russell turn himself in, which you already saw during day 6.
Something cool to point out is that you can't enter this room if you've already seen the scene. There's not a lot of new info here, but it's a cool teaser for what's to come if you encounter it early on. The room on the right shows Russell in a visitation room. In this room, Russell shares a very important thought.
What does it feel like to care for your family? I'll probably never know. We find the reason why he thinks this on the other side of the window.
Russell, thank you for being born as my sister's child and being brought up to be such human garbage. Thank you so much. Because you've become a test subject for this rehabilitation experiment, your aunt's receiving a lot of money from the government.
It seems nobody in his family even remotely held any love for him. Even after killing his parents, he still had to deal with the hatred from the rest of his family. Which is of course perfectly justified since he's a serial killer, but the point is that he had nobody on his side. He was always alone. He had nobody to console him when his rabbit died, and he had nobody to console him now. Which is the conclusion that I originally came to. He never had nobody show him love. That's why the people who killed always had some connection to a form of it. But apparently, that notion is just flat out false.
On the third day, after completing a cute little side quest, you get another compass. This compass opens up a floor in the seaside hotel.
Out of order. Such an obvious lie. Come, Russell. Come to our puddle. Russell, there was just one person you could call a close friend. Yes, a boy named Chris was your only friend. This place greatly resembles the place where he lived. You often visited his house. Beautiful, nostalgic memories. I wonder, what is he doing now? You no longer have any way of knowing, Russell. Like we were just told, this place resembles an apartment complex. And from talking to the inhabitants, we get the impression that this isn't the best place to be at, even mentioning how dangerous it is to stay here for long, alongside with residents being barely able to afford the housing.
Either way, walking inside of room 105, we meet Chris. Chris is, in my opinion, the most important character in this entire story.
And if I'm allowed to be honest for a second, this is by far the hardest character for me to talk about. I believe there's such deep importance to Russell's character that covering all the details will be too time consuming. So I'm going to try and summarize this best as I can.
Chris is just a normal kid, who also appears to be from a broken home. By broken home, I mean the literal definition of it. His father is fully absent, Russell has no memory of him, and Chris doesn't mention him at all. I may be jumping the gun with that, but to me, there's a reason why he's not mentioned at all. Alongside being a broken home, his family is very badly off financially. That's the very first thing Chris mentions when you talk to him. Even at some point having to work some extremely shady jobs to make some income. Chris seems to be very carefree and apparently a troublemaker. But more importantly, he has Russell's back, and is there for him.
And Russell is very much aware of this, being able to confide in Chris about aspects of his life. But more importantly, Chris knows something about every one of Russell's victims.
He mentions that his friends saw him get brought into the police office by Yumi. He points out the bruises that Russell's dad gave to him and talks about getting cold compresses for him at the hospital. He mentions the back alley shop that Kantera lives in, even knowing a little bit about his background. He knows that Russell has been visiting the church that Dogma Cody are part of. He talks in detail about the birthday party that Gardenia invited them to, even mentioning how he has a crush on her. And he also mentions that Russell was skipping school. When Chris asks why, he gets to know that it's because he was going to the zoo, which I'm pretty sure means that Chris also knew about this in real life. So in the end, we know somebody that knows Russell so much that he knows the connection to every one of his victims. We know that Russell has one person in his life that actually supports him, and so does Chris's mother too actually. When you come over at night, Chris's mother is there too. If you talk to her, she offers Russell to have dinner with them. And she even knows about Russell having some family problems. Maybe not the full scope of it, but she's still offering shelter from the horrors at home, just like Chris. Which is emphasized by this line from Chris. Hey, you'll talk here? It's okay if you live here, yeah? Mom seems kinda fond of you too. Russell has people out there looking out for him. He has someone offering a helping hand, a temporary escape from the hellish place that was his family. But alas, the rest of the timeline still plays out.
I want to place Chris right before the events of any of the victims. You probably know that this friendship lasted all the way till the day Russell turned himself in. And this paints a new picture for me. One where Russell did have someone to look out for him. People who are fond of him, want the best for him, want to help him and want to make his life worth living. Sadly, this isn't enough. The cuts from his family are too deep. Yet, this made me realize, why did he still commit those murders?
If witnessing this level of love turned to aggression, then how come that wasn't the case here? His motive starts to fall apart when you realize that he did have people that supported him. It made me think that I should be more cautious of making him seem too innocent, because in the end, he is the one that decided and took action against people who never wronged him. What if the TV is just correct and he's the deranged maniac? Maybe in the end, he is just a monster.
But just like before, this notion is put into question with the next event.
Start on day 4, you get a side quest to help out clear a monster in the basement of a building.
Entering the basement, it appears to be another dungeon. This one being an aquarium. The monsters here are fishes and microbes. And just like the other dungeons in this game, they also have something important to say.
She knew the names of fish very well. When I said, "That's impressive," she smiled shyly. This life is so small you can't even see it. That's what she talked to me about.
There's a lot of mention of someone here. A specific she. A mysterious girl. The most important thing here is that we don't see any signs of anguish or envy in any of these lines. These lines seem like they're reminiscing about good memories, unlike most combat lines in this game. Let's get to the boss of this place. Entering the boss room.
A long time ago, you helped a lost girl to an aquarium. Taking her hand, you went around looking at all kinds of fish. Those were beautiful, nostalgic memories. Russell, what did you do with your heart from back then?
Once again, guilt appears on the screen. Something I want to point out, because I'm on crackhead theory crafting mode, is that it mentions the line, beautiful nostalgic memories. This same line was used to describe the memories surrounding Chris. And the final line really stands out. What did you do with your heart from back then? This once again confirms that Russell, at some point in his life, used to be normal. And that before the incident with his rabbit, he used to be okay. So this must take place before then, right? I'm gonna wait for my thoughts till after the boss, because I'm not quite sure on that. The boss of this dungeon appears to be some type of squid girl, and hearing her speak, we encountered that she is probably one of the most aware bosses we've encountered so far.
I am a fragment of your conscience, part of your few beautiful memories. But now, I've been made so hideous, by none other than yourself. Sadly enough, in this dream, it's me who's an impediment, a monster that must be erased. By defeating me, you will be cursed with a deeper, uglier self. Now, let's do this.
Entering this fight, we can see that this boss is mostly human, in the same vein as the Gardenia fight we had before. She also immediately says this.
This is your dream, a half-forced world of nightmare. Thank you for what you did then, but if you'd just forgotten, we wouldn't have had to fight.
To this, Russell reacts with a very silent expression. The longer the fight goes on, we can see that this is something that isn't wanted. We can see that both the boss and to some extent Russell don't want to have to do this.
I can't do anything but make you suffer now. Even I've become part of your nightmare.
This is someone who hates the entire idea of being something to cause guilt. After the fight, she mentions that even remembering kindness brings you pain now.
But what kindness is she talking about? Here's my interpretation of the story. Russell visited an aquarium at some point, where he found a lost girl all by herself. Seeing this scared girl alone, he decided to stay with her and keep her company. He walked around the aquarium with her, and it sounds like they had fun, with her sharing her interest about the exhibits and Russell listening and treating her with kindness.
I think that this event takes place after the rabbit event, for a lot of reasons. Starting off with him most likely being older in this event, because in the rabbit event he's mentioned that he's really young. But you may then say that in the rabbit event, that's where his worldview crumbled and that's where he became emotionless. I think that it wasn't fully gone. And I think this event shows that deep inside of him, he still had a good heart. Helping a poor girl by keeping her company when she was alone. Being there for her. Even if it was for half a day. This is a clear sign that Russell could have turned out differently. That's why remember that kindness hurts him so much. That's why it fills him with so much guilt. Hell, talking in meta sense, this is the event that raises the most guilt. All the other events in this game raise 5 guilt. But this event in particular raises 10 points. I think it's because Russell does realize that there was an out for him. A way to avoid spiraling to becoming something that he despises. An escape from him becoming the deranged maniac that would hurt and take the lives of those that didn't do anything wrong. It's really saddening because of the thought of what could have been.
And it becomes worse when we realize that it could have worked. Because at some point, his life was normal. And it was at a glance, happy. Maybe all he needed was just people to show him how to find that happiness again.
And with that, I am done with the timeline and delving into Russell's character.
In the end, what conclusion can we draw from this? Who is Russell really? Is it the deranged maniac that experiment tells him he is? Is he a jealous beast that preyed on those who had good lives? Or is he a traumatized child who ended up being used by others for their own selfish reasons? Was he a victim of abuse that forced him into becoming this monster? Was he isolated from a young age and had nobody to help him repair his broken mind? Or was he someone who deluded himself to thinking he was unloved as an excuse to justify his crimes? Was there ever a chance for him to become a normal kid capable of love and kindness? Or was he always destined to become this monster? Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the game provides a clear-cut answer to any of these questions.
This style of offense is to demonstrate that his actions and experience shaped him into who he was. That there isn't one concrete label that would work for him. That there isn't only just one reason why he turned out like this. Russell's character is just not one thing. He's a very detailed character. One who's a prime example of some amazing character writing. Being an example of somebody who feels actually human. In the end, Russell is just that. Russell. And now I can finally go into the point I want to make with the story. You've seen me sit here for a long time just fucking talking about the story, talk about Russell, piecing together an entire narrative, showing how much I love this narrative. And I've done this before, with Cat in the Box. And it's for the same reason. The sheer amount of things that this story has to offer makes its character and narrative beyond outstanding. I am honest to God impressed at how good this game is. I'm genuinely shocked at how incredible this story is. The amount of love, effort and thought put into the story for the player to be consumed by is very telling. Once again, this is done by one person using one engine, which I never expected for it to produce things of this great quality. That's because the person behind it was able to make something incredible, even with its limitations. I think this game is flat out amazing narratively. Story alone, I think that this game is number 1 on my list. But I'm not just ranking on story, am I? Sorry man, but I just can't stand that fucking gameplay. I really don't think that the gameplay is able to live up to the number 1 spot. I really wish it was, but I just can't lie to myself. The combat being able to kill someone's mood and enjoyment of the game and forcing you to drag yourself around grinding for levels is something that really harmed this game. So in good consciousness, I cannot for the life of me put this in the number 1 spot. I really wish that most of the game was like the hospital segment where there was no combat, because they showed that they could do something without actually using that combat. And it worked. Yet, that's not what we got. It's even more painful seeing that it could have been something even greater. I am placing Endroll above Cat in the Box, which is something that really pained me because I really love both titles a lot. But I just simply prefer Endroll's character study more than Cat in the Box mystery. And I know I could be getting crucified for that, but in the end, this is a review. It's my opinion. So I'm gonna give my opinion. And with that, I think I can finally wrap up this video. Holy shit. Like I said before, I never expected to make this video. Well, I expected to make this video because, you know, it's part of my series, but I never expected to make it like this. I have now 6 hours of raw footage. That's probably just me all stuttering, but more importantly, I have 50 pages of writing. And it's just because this product was flat out amazing. With that, I want to say, don't expect videos this analytical ever again. Maybe sometime in the future, something will catch my interest like this. But for now, for the next video, it's probably gonna be more chill. It's probably gonna be a smaller review, like with Fear and Hunger 2. Also, thank you guys so much for all the support and love for the series. I saw that the Fear and Hunger 2 video currently has 6,000 views, and I was able to go up to 270 subscribers. I genuinely speechless. I really want to thank you guys for watching my videos and subscribing to my channel. Even if you sometimes disagree with me, even everything. I always say, if you disagree with me, please say it in the comments. I do want to showcase everyone's opinion on the game, because my enjoyment of the game is not the same as somebody else's, and my number 1 ranking and my ranking is not the definitive ranking. Thank you for watching till the end. Please support the creator of this game by downloading it and just giving them as much love as possible.
I also want to thank every single person that helped make this video. Thank you to Yutake for creating the thumbnail for this video. Always love to see more fan art for this amazing game. And thank you to all the voice actors that took part in this video as well. I've listed those with social media in the description below, so check them out. They're all amazing, talented people. I also have a Twitter now where I upload progress reports for my videos and occasionally just, I don't know, shitpost or something. If you're a small artist or voice actor that would like to take part in one of my videos in the future, feel free to reach out with some of your work on there. Trying to voice for this video made me realize how hard it really is. Fucking penguin. And I'd love to showcase people's talents in whatever way I can.
And do you have anything else on my script I want to mention? Nope. I hope I've been able to show you more games which desperately deserve a lot of attention. Anyhow, on to the next game. Wait, isn't this game also very story heavy? Ah, fuck, not again.